The storms that change a life rarely announce themselves with thunder. Sometimes, they enter quietly, through the back door of a near-empty building long after sunset, through the trembling hands of a man who has already lost too much, through the cold echo of footsteps in a skyscraper where his presence shouldn't matter. Yet on the night everything began, the moment that would unravel buried pain and transform two broken lives started with a crash of anger powerful enough to shake the entire 42nd floor. It was the kind of fury that employees had learned to fear, a rage belonging to a man so wealthy the world bent around him, yet so bitter the air seemed to tighten whenever he appeared. And it was on that night, as security guards and assistants shrank away from that familiar storm, that the new janitor on the night shift, a single father with a tired heart and nowhere else to go, stepped forward instead of stepping back. He didn't plan to be a hero. He didn't plan to challenge anyone. But sometimes life corners you so sharply that courage becomes the only remaining option. If you believe in kindness, in unexpected second chances, and in stories that show how humans can change each other's lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Your support helps keep these inspiring stories alive. Elias Turner had never imagined he would be pushing a cleaning cart through halls of smoked glass and marble floors. Months earlier, he'd been a construction supervisor, the kind of man who walked with tired confidence, providing for his young daughter, Maya, with steady hands and a voice that always sounded sure, even when life wasn't. But life had a way of breaking without warning. The accident on the site changed everything. First came the medical bills, then the missed shifts, and finally the quiet, suffocating silence of an eviction notice taped to a peeling door. With nowhere to go and only temporary shelters available, Elias took the night janitor job because it allowed him to be with Maya during the day, when she was too scared to be left alone in their shared cot at the shelter. He promised her they would get out of the mess. He promised her that brighter days were edging closer, even if he could barely see them himself. In contrast, Lucas Hale, the billionaire whose name was carved into the very steel of the building Elias now cleaned, believed himself untouchable. He carried tragedy like armor, wearing cruelty as a shield against the memories he refused to confront. People didn't whisper behind his back, they fled from him. His face was sharp, handsome in the way magazine covers adored, but his eyes carried a darkness so cold it left frost behind wherever he walked. His company was hailed as one of the most successful in the country, but rumors always followed him. The man who had everything yet trusted nothing, the man whose fortune was built on brilliance but whose humanity had burned away long ago. The night Elias first encountered him was one of those nights where the city outside seemed to groan under the weight of its own loneliness. He had been scrubbing a far corner of the executive lounge, humming softly to keep himself awake, thinking about Maya sleeping in the small folding cot volunteers had given them. He was halfway lost in worry when he heard the crash, glass shattering, something heavy hitting the floor, a raw growl echoing through the sleek corridors. Elias froze for a moment, instinctively glancing toward the elevator where assistants often waited to be summoned and shouted at. But there was no one. Just him, the smell of lemon disinfectant, and the unmistakable sound of someone unraveling behind closed doors. He found Lucas Hale standing amid broken glass, breathing hard, his expensive suit jacket tossed to the ground beside a toppled whiskey bottle. The city lights behind him poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting him in a fractured silhouette that seemed painfully human for a man so feared. Everyone avoided him. Everyone knew better than to interrupt one of his tempests. But Elias couldn't walk away, maybe because he had already seen too many people break silently, too many people hurt in the dark. Maybe because, deep down, suffering recognizes suffering. He stepped forward, steady but cautious, ready for the insult or threat he expected. When it came, the words were venomous, slicing through the air in that icy billionaire tone everyone dreaded. But Elias didn't shrink. He didn't grovel or apologize for existing. He simply stood his ground, tired, worn down, worried for his daughter, but not willing to let anger destroy the little dignity he had left. Something in Lucas's expression cracked at that. For the first time that night, he blinked as if he wasn't looking at an intruder but at a puzzle piece he had never seen before. The days that followed were tense. Employees whispered about the janitor who didn't get fired, a miracle no one understood. Lucas watched Elias from a distance, each night returning to work later and later, pretending coincidence whenever their paths crossed. Elias kept doing his job, shoulders stiff but respectful, never bowing his head but never pushing boundaries either. Their strange, silent coexistence formed like a bridge no one expected, one built not of trust, but something rougher, something halfway between irritation and reluctant acknowledgement. Then the shift occurred, small, nearly invisible at first. It started when Lucas saw Elias bring Maya with him one night, after a mix-up at the shelter forced her to wait in the empty lobby for an hour. She clung to her father's leg, eyes big with exhaustion and hunger hidden behind practiced bravery. Lucas watched from the shadows of his office doorway, caught off guard by the gentle way Elias knelt and whispered to her, promising things he wasn't sure he could give. It lingered with him, the warmth, the patience, the simple love he'd long forgotten. Lucas's past was a locked room no one dared enter. Loss had carved him hollow, stealing the tenderness he once had and replacing it with bitterness so sharp he stopped caring whom he cut. He felt safer behind that fortress of arrogance. But seeing Elias with Maya cracked something deep inside him. A memory. A ghost. A reminder of a life he had once imagined but had been robbed of. He began lingering more openly when Elias worked. He asked pointless questions just to make conversation, awkward, clipped sentences that surprised everyone, even himself. Elias answered with caution at first, but the more he glimpsed the wounded humanity beneath Lucas's icy facade, the more he realized the billionaire wasn't cruel for sport, he was cruel for protection. Gradually, their interactions softened. Lucas started sending leftover catered food down to the janitorial staff without admitting it was his idea. He quietly approved overtime requests Elias never submitted. He even arranged for a corner of the storage room to be transformed into a small resting area so Maya wouldn't have to sit in the cold lobby anymore. He did these things secretly, almost defensively, as if terrified someone might accuse him of caring. But caring has a way of unraveling even the deepest knots. One night, when Elias's exhaustion caught him off guard and he nearly collapsed mid-shift, Lucas found him leaning heavily on his cart. Something inside the billionaire snapped, not with anger this time, but with protective urgency. He demanded to know what was going on, why Elias looked one breath away from falling apart. And for the first time, Elias told him everything. The eviction, the bills, the accident, the nights sleeping in borrowed corners while trying to keep his daughter safe. He spoke quietly, without begging or expecting help, just a man releasing a heavy truth he had carried alone too long. Lucas listened in stunned silence. Something raw and unfamiliar tightened in his chest. Empathy. Guilt. Recognition. From that night on, the shift in their dynamic was unmistakable. Lucas began insisting Elias take breaks, bringing him coffee, making sure Maya had everything she needed. He even started walking through the building with Elias at night, observing how the janitor handled every task with pride, despite the weight on his shoulders. It impressed him. It humbled him. And gradually, it changed him. Lucas began confronting the demons he had buried, memories of his own childhood, the father who had died before they could reconcile, the dreams he had abandoned in the pursuit of success that ultimately left him empty. Elias didn't know these details, Lucas wasn't ready to share them. But being around Elias and Maya stirred things inside him that had long been numb, the desire to be better, to soften, to make amends with a world he had pushed away. When a major company crisis erupted, threatening to expose years of unresolved conflict within the board, it was Elias's unexpected wisdom that helped Lucas navigate the storm. Elias reminded him, gently, sincerely, that strength wasn't found in fear or isolation, but in vulnerability, in seeking help before everything crumbled. Lucas listened. And for once, he chose connection over control. Their bond deepened from reluctant respect to quiet friendship, the kind that heals slowly and authentically. Lucas started spending time with Maya, discovering that her laughter warmed places